Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pathways to Family Wellness podcast. My name is Dr. Brendan Reardon, pediatric and family chiropractor. And joining me once again, we have John Ohm, the managing editor of Pathways to Family Wellness magazine. John, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you again, Brandon. I'm so grateful for this conversation and to be tying chiropractic into German new medicine. This is such a fascinating conversation that I'm so happy to be having, and I hope that listeners can glean a lot from this.
Yeah, it sure is as well. We were realizing as we went through this. This is the fourth installment of our conversations, and the funny thing John and I have been talking about is usually when I go through a subject with interviewees, we might have one segment, maybe two that we're going through. Now we're on our fourth one because we're realizing there's just so much material that we've gone through. And we really wanted to, for the sake of our listeners, unpack a little bit about understanding tone in the nervous system, how we can increase the flexibility of our nervous system, what tone really is all about, and then connecting some of the dots to the chiropractic piece of this, how chiropractic can play a major role in increasing the flexibility of our nervous system and impacting the tone of our nervous system.
Yeah, 100%. And, when I think about chiropractic, there's a long history to it, going back to before the last century, right? The inception of chiropractic. And so many great ideas have come out of the chiropractic profession. And, really it's a paradigm shift in and of itself, bringing us to a new understanding of biology with the idea that life expresses intelligence all through the
Yes.
body. And we can understand the phenomenon of biology in this context of life expressing intelligence. And really, that juxtaposes itself against sort of an older paradigm or the older principles in medicine, which really sees biology within the context of malignancy, error, breakdown. And really, so the chiropractic profession and the philosophy of chiropractic and the art of adjusting the spine, everything about it represents kind of a light in the darkness of our understanding of biology. So the way I see chiropractic is laying the foundation of the new paradigm of biology that we're really stepping into now with the discoveries of German new medicine and other things as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And if you look at some of the earlier writings, so chiropractic was founded in 1895 by D.D. Palmer, who was a magnetic healer at the time, prior to that, and then discovered this incredible living principle that we're going to unpack a little bit here in terms of how life expresses intelligence. But I really think you summed it up so good in those three words, which, come from John Ohm, who's amazing, who left us with those amazing three words that can really sum up the entirety of what we're looking at here. It's not that life expresses flaw. It's not that life is broken. It's not that, life expresses other things. It's very simple. Life expresses intelligence. If we look at what happens in the body, these phenomena, what happens in the body, if we look at it through the lens of life expressing intelligence, things make so much more sense. And really it's quite logical. It's not a religious thing. It's more of we're looking at what happens in the body and say, wow, that is a purposeful change in the body. Intelligence is just a word to describe what's happening through there, but there's purposeful changes in the body. We could call them intelligent adaptations. And again, not in a religious sort of way at all, but just we are observing what's happening around us. We're seeing that there's an order. It's not chaotic to it. There's a purpose for some of these adaptations that are happening in the body.
Yeah, exactly. And so these new discoveries of the German new medicine, they really vindicate and validate that philosophical framework of understanding biology. Chiropractors understood this principle and they used it as their major premise, and deduced from there. That's how my mom always described it, the major premise in chiropractic. And you can
Yes.
deduce from there so many great things about understanding biology and health. And so they had this understanding. And of course, things would happen. People would, uh, get ill or fall with a disease of some sort. And if the intensity of the disease is profound, it's hard to hold to that principle and say, oh, the body is expressing intelligence. So we've always kind of had to balance two sides. The body
Yes.
expresses intelligence. It's a great principle, but sometimes things happen that are sort of outside of our scope, and we don't really know how to understand this. But still, so that's we didn't know how to understand them really. Until the discoveries of German new medicine would show us the phenomenon of biology, by way of these new discoveries of the brain and the nervous system, which do indeed show that these are parts or consequences of intelligent biological adaptations in the body directed and controlled from the brain. So So it's really, it's a lot to take in at first, but it makes so much sense on the face of it that this wonderful paradigm of understanding biology and using this major premise to deduce from that there's intelligence in the body, which we've
Yes.
always understood in history. The body gets a scratch, and it intelligently repairs that damage, right? So we know that there's an expression of intelligence to the body that goes all the way back to like the old philosophers in history
Yes.
and old medical doctors or medicine men. And so yeah, I just find the connection to the German medicine such a revelation to be able to affirm this new premise in healthcare. And I find it so important to affirm that new premise because that is the context that breeds health, that
Yes.
serves health, is understanding biology not as something that's attacking you. Nature isn't attacking you. Your body isn't causing malignancies in the body, and there's this kind of concept of evil in nature, and we have to fight against the body, fight against evil, suppress symptoms, right? And in this war mentality, and
Yes.
that mentality, because the psyche, brain, and organ are connected in one whole kind of overarching picture, that mentality has some deleterious effects on the
Mm.
body. So to really shift our culture and our understanding towards this major premise is so helpful to
Yes.
improve the health of an individual who needs that support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful philosophy. That's really what drew me personally to chiropractic was when I started to read about it and I was reading about this idea that the body has intelligence or is intelligent. Nature heals itself. These are things that intuitively I think many of us understand to be true, but on one form or another we may have trained ourselves over the years to look at things differently. And the piece that I find so fascinating that we've unpacked a little bit here is when we're talking about these intelligent adaptations that happen in the brain and then express themselves along certain tissues and glands and organ, it's really about how the brain perceives the event that we experience. It's all about how that event is perceived, which is then going to show up in the organs and the tissues and the glands. I think some of the examples that we had were when we were in the previous episodes were a boundary demarcation issue showing up as a kidney issue, um, an ear infection from something that we weren't able to process or didn't want to hear, things like that, where there are these psyche adaptations that are interpreted specifically by the individual's nervous system. So you and I, for example, could witness the exact same event or be a part of the exact same event and have completely different tissue and organ changes as a result of experiencing an identical phenomena, right? But how we interpret it would then show up how our body would adapt to it and change to it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Really the biggest picture here is understanding how the psyche has a structure to it. That's really what we're discovering here. So in chiropractic, there's a philosophy of saying that structure determines function, or
Mm.
structure dictates function. And we understand that in the mechanistic sense of the structure of the body, the posture of the body, that will determine, and the
Hmm.
nervous system in the body will determine the function of the organs of the body. And just for a moment, you can approach now the psyche, our experiences in life, as having a kind of structure to it. And so to understand that from the German medicine point of view, what we're really understanding is that there's quadrants of the brain that respond and adapt to specific categories of experience in our psyche, in our environment.
Yes.
So, for instance, you have the territorial relays in the cerebral cortex. Um, this cerebral cortex governs the ectodermal tissues of various organs in the body. And these relays are really responsible for responding to things in our life relative to our territory and our standing in our pack or in our group, our position in our pack and group. And so when we have conflicts in life relative to this specific area of life, of our territory, I mean, it's not very specific, it's very general.
Hmm.
But this is the part of the brain that's responsible for responding and adapting to that kind of quality of experience or category of experience.
Yes.
And then we have a whole nother quadrant in the cerebral medulla, the white matter of the brain, controlling like the musculoskeletal system. Here it's all about our relationship to ourself and our value or worth and self devaluations. I'm unable to do something. I'm not strong enough. I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with me. That is the quality or category of experience in the psyche that now has a fit in the brain and the organs of the body.
Yes.
Okay. And then again, going further in the cerebellum, you have another quadrant, which is controlling the old mesodermal tissues in the body. And these relays and organs are responding to life experiences that have to do with protection and safety and nurturance, protecting ourselves or our loved ones from attack or threats. And the organs of the body will respond to that kind of experience in life, or this category of experience. And then
Yes.
lastly, we have the brainstem, which is all about the morsels we need to survive. So food, water, air can be interpreted as a morsel in this sense, as well as money or our possessions in
Mm.
life, the things we need to survive. And this aspect or this quadrant of biology corresponds to this category of experience. So we're understanding now that the psyche has a structure to it and that these relays in the brain correspond to these experiences in life. And there's category now to these experiences. So the psyche isn't just mind now.
Yes.
The psyche has this biological mirror reflecting it, and everything that goes on in the body with respect to the organism is intimately related to our psyche and our experiences, our life story, the things that we had challenging us and things that we needed to adapt to. And our
Yes.
whole body adapts, not just the whole nervous system shifting us into that sympathetic active phase, but the organs of the body adapt, right?
Yeah.
Turned on from these brain relays corresponding to these unique experiences in life. So it's such a, oh man, it's so fascinating in terms of philosophy, chiropractic philosophy, but really all, I think this is a conversation that's going to begin in chiropractic circles. It already has, and it's really going to extend to so many other areas of our understanding of biology. Psychology has a huge evolution now to our understanding of psychology, traditional psychology, because these brain imprints, they do affect our psyche and our psychology on such a deep level. We didn't talk about that in the previous conversations, but there's a whole other part of
Yeah.
the German medicine referring to shifts in our psyche or psychological disorders that we've called in history that have everything to do with these imprints in the brain and our experiences in life of challenges that take us by
Yeah.
surprise. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, and there's a lot to be said about the flexibility and the rigidity of the nervous system in that context. So for those four examples of the quadrants you're giving, something's much more likely to be perceived as a threat if there's a rigidity to the nervous system, right? If there's a flexibility to the nervous system, they would be minor adaptations, minor imprints, or even none at all, as the nervous system is flexible. So there would likely be no organ involvement afterwards. Like in that example of you and I in the same situation, we could observe something, you could interpret it as an existential threat, and I could just, and go about my day, and you may have that whole system of intelligent adaptations triggered and put into effect with all the downstream effects of that. And your awareness of that happening will allow you to roll through the experience with ease. And also, the more flexible your nervous system is, or my nervous system is, the less that these things are going to be perceived as threats in different ways, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the chiropractic connection there of improving the nervous system's flexibility. I understand now chiropractic as kind of providing the foundation, almost you could say the mechanistic foundation of a vitalistic philosophy or paradigm of
Yeah.
biology,
Hmm.
that finally ties in the importance of the psyche into the individual. By focusing on the nervous system and helping to support the flexibility of the nervous system, of course, that's going to be important in our ability to adapt and resolve challenges in life. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. To bring this up, I really love Dr. Hammer's use of the words, what constitutes a biological conflict shock? He says
Yes.
it's an event that catches us on the wrong foot.
Yes.
In other words, it takes us by surprise, but I love that terminology. It catches us on the wrong foot. And what that calls to mind is sort of this idea of proprioception and our ability to navigate our environment, our body in space,
Yeah.
right? And if we have a great proprioceptive reflex, and which is really just an extension of our nervous system's sensations, you know, and sensory awareness of the environment, when we can improve that awareness of our environment through measures that we can take for the nervous system, then you're not going to be caught on the wrong foot. You're not going to stumble when something hits you.
Yep.
You're going to be resilient to things that otherwise would take you by surprise and overwhelm your nervous system's capacity to adapt and move through the process. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a perfect understanding of it. And I like what you said about a mechanistic understanding for a vitalistic philosophy.
Hmm.
If we're understanding as it is that chiropractic is all about tone, when we're talking about tone, what we mean is basically the tone, as I understand it, of the way a musical string might have a certain tone to it. A musical string functions best at a particular tone, not too loose, not too tight, but just right. We know for it to be perfectly tuned, it has to have the proper tone. And a good way to think of our nervous system is in a similar sort of way, or the spinal cord, or the way that nerves function is they need to be in their proper tone, or as Didi Palmer would say, their renitence of the, which is a really fun old school word there, but basically the natural state of tension that's there. And so when I'm talking about flexibility of the nervous system or tone, we don't mean the way that you might stretch a muscle to loosen it up. It's not about everything being loosey goosey. That would be just as bad as everything being tight. It's about everything being in its proper tension, its proper tone for the proper support of our body, which then creates a much better proprioceptive awareness, or awareness of where we are in gravity, both of where our physical body is and where our spiritual body is. I've certainly had plenty of those experiences in practice where I work on someone and you think this person is way outside of their body right now.
Hmm.
And for that kind of a person, they're already on the wrong foot. So anything is going to overwhelm that nervous system. They're going to be interpreting things as conflict shocks that many other people would not be interpreting as conflict shocks because the nervous system is on such high alert already. There's very little flexibility to that nervous system, whether because of too low hypo or too high hyper.
That's right. Yes. And this goes back to the importance of D.D. Palmer and his, visionary genius when he, discovered or at least began to focus on subluxations along the spinal column, vertebral subluxations.
Yeah.
And his insight was it's really about the effect these subluxations have on tone, either shifting our tone into the sympathetic
Hmm.
tension pattern or shifting it into the vagatonic parasympathetic loosey-goosey pattern. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
And so, yes, this is a wonderful context. Really, it is, I think it's the best context for understanding resilience, adaptability, health
Yep.
is tone.
Yeah.
And this ties in so well with the German New Medicine. It really, what the German New Medicine is showing us, it reveals so much about this context of understanding the nervous system and tone, uh, where the shift in tone is really part of that response of biology um, to stress in life. And here we're talking about conflict shocks that impact the brain. And so that
Yeah.
impact in the brain will result in a shift into sympathetic atonia.
Yes.
Okay. And that shift into sympathetic atonia is how we can begin to understand these underlying processes that are then run from the body. It is
Yeah.
the nervous system shift in tone does govern the unique organ adaptation in the body. So just as D.D. Palmer was anticipating when he said, I see subluxations along the spine, and I see how how they could be shifting the tone of the nervous system, and that could be causing a residual effect in the organs of the body, causing disease, right?
Yep.
And so that was his premise. And of course, oh my God, we're finding out that that premise is so accurate. It's 100% right. When you focus on the tone and shifts in the tone, you get this comprehensive knowledge of what is affecting the organs of the body.
Yeah.
Um, and even to add further than that, the chiropractic principle that life expresses intelligent and that the body is really adapting. These shifts in tone really signify something meaningful, that the body is trying to adapt to its environment.
Yes.
That is such an important principle to hold on to here, as opposed to the idea that these subluxations, they're just misalignments from whatever reason, and they're causing an impingement on the nerve, causing dysfunction in the organ. I really prefer and I really love D.D. Palmer's emphasis on how these subluxations cause shift in tone. And that's the context to begin to understand the phenomenon of biology. D.D. Palmer has a quote, I'll like paraphrase it here. He says that the science of chiropractic is concerned with the knowledge of how organisms act in health and disease,
Yes.
and also the art of adjusting the neuroskeleton. So really, he's trying to understand the phenomenon of health and disease.
Yeah.
And he went to the spine and subluxations as being very important because of their effect on the tone of the body. And here with the German New Medicine, with these brain imprints, these lesions in the brain that result from a conflict shock and their direct shift in the tone of the body and the target organ's cellular adaptation that proceeds, oh my God, we're beginning to put it all together. And it goes all the way back to the origin of chiropractic and the original insight here that subluxations are indeed responsible for these alterations or changes in the organ's function, cellular function. And what we're understanding now is that the consequence of these changes are the symptoms that we've been labeling disease and that we've been kind of in our previous culture understanding as a kind of malignancy or error.
Yeah.
And really, it's all fitting within this context of no, there's an intelligent adaptation running
Yes.
in response to our psyche and our experiences in life. So,
And with a strong focus on what's happening at the end organ as well, right? So when we're looking at the limited model, we see what may have happened at the end organ, the end of that whole chain series of events, and say, you see, that's the problem right there. This is the problem. We need to focus on fixing that problem. Instead of trying to connect the dots as best we can towards what may have led to that in the first place, and then to either step back and allow the process to unfold, or if there's ways that we can help to facilitate and enhance the healing process that's already occurring in the body in order to encourage normal physiology to result.
yes. And, it's really showing us how nature desires something, and we can work in harmony with nature,
Yes.
with the body. There is a biological intention behind these organ adaptations, specific to the organ and its cellular changes. It's a major benefit to understand what the body wants. Okay, so the way I've described it now in the past is that modern medicine, especially with the advent of these technologies and sophisticated measures, does splendidly with correcting fractures, restorative interventions, right? They can
Trauma, physical
trauma,
trauma
yeah,
as well. Yeah.
physical trauma, that's right.
Yeah.
They're amazing at that. And why are they amazing? Not just because they have the technological advances now to do amazing things, but because they understand what the body wants in that case. There's no mistaking about it. You have a major fracture, the body wants to reorganize and realign that bone. And realign the muscles and realign the ligaments and realign
Yep.
the nerves even, all right, to regain normal function. So they're splendidly amazing at helping an individual in such a case. When it comes to organic diseases, cancers, infections, inflammations, chronic symptoms, we did not know what the body wanted. Hence our opinion that the body is just expressing malignancy, or is expressing dysfunction, or is expressing, error. And that was our model of understanding this, assuming that kind of an extension of our previous idea that, it must be a poisonous entity causing the dysfunction or the error in the body.
Yeah.
We just didn't know what the body wanted in these cases. And with the German New Medicine, what we're understanding is that the body wants something very specific, with respect to the individual's brain, their organ, and now connecting it to the psyche and the history of an individual's story and their experiences in life. Now we know what the body wants, and now we can organize efforts to help the individual achieve that goal. And when you achieve that goal, you get that shift in the nervous system to essentially to go into vagatonia and then normatonia. You regain normatonia when you
Yeah.
resolve that conflict in life, when you achieve that goal that the body is trying to achieve. So it really is such a powerful model, a new discovery, totally
Yes.
situated on the chiropractic premises, in principle and in philosophy, and it helps us work with nature instead of fighting and warring against nature, literally battling our bodies.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that normatonia or normal physiology is when we think of normal, some people may think that, oh, that's, it's just normal. It's not that exciting. But normal physiology is basically a superpower if you think about it. I mean, normal physiology means that these incredible internal resources that our body has can do amazing things, absolutely incredible things. And it's very normal. I think so many people are experiencing dysfunctional physiology on a daily basis that normal physiology is like a superpower when it's finally restored to these people, to create normal function.
Yeah, exactly. And chiropractors experience this on the table with their patients, right?
Yes.
They adjust the subluxation in the spine, or the subluxations in the spine, and then the individual will regain a new sense of nervous system coherence and
Yes,
will regain
coherence.
that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
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 we hadn't talked about that yet either, and I think well, we may have in the past episodes actually. I think we did, but
yeah. I love the word.
that's very appropriate for what we've been speaking about as well today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sense of coherence isn't just the body. Obviously, we understand it in the context of the psyche of the individual, the emotions of the individual. And yeah, the sense of coherence is the whole picture, right?
Yeah.
When you have that sense of coherence, and chiropractors have witnessed this, adjusting the vertebral subluxations, bringing balance to the nervous system, and then this individual expresses a greater state of coherence. But
Yes.
even here, we can understand something that we understood in chiropractic earlier, which is an individual will have that tension pattern. And real
Yes.
quick, one of my favorite quotes of D.D. Palmer is a letter to B.J. Palmer saying, tension, my boy, is responsible for 99% of all diseases, right? That shift into sympathetic atonia.
Yes.
Um, Tension, yeah, okay. So a chiropractor can sense the tension in the nervous system, address the subluxations along the spine and in the body, and the individual will shift, have a nervous system wide shift in their physiology. And so now understanding from the German New Medicine perspective, we understand that you have that conflict shock in life causing the sympathetic atonic shift in the nervous system to that tension pattern. And then what happens when you have the resources to comprehend, navigate, and overcome the challenge in life, which is a very psyche, brain, organ phenomenon. It requires a greater sense of coherence, understanding, as well as adaptability, right?
Yes.
Then you can comprehend the problem that was previously plaguing you.
Yeah.
And adjusting the spine and bringing greater coherence to the individual, they shift out of that sympathetic atonic tension pattern, and what has to follow that is a vagatonic phase, the healing phase. And so
Yes.
chiropractors observed this shift, and then the individual would start to express symptoms in a given
Yes.
organ of the body. And chiropractors would say, they gave a word to this. They called it retracing. Okay. They said, oh, wow, these symptoms coming after the adjustment. What is happening? The individual is retracing. What a beautiful word. Okay. And what a beautiful cohesion to what we really understand with the German New Medicine is that the individual is indeed retracing. They are retracing the organ adaptation to restore the organ back to normal tone. And that retracing in the healing phase, especially at the EC, that midpoint of the healing that we touched on a little bit in the last episode, that EC expression of a brief sympathetic atonic shift in the nervous system during this vagatonic healing phase, you, on a very deep level in the psyche, re experience the conflict shock in life
Yes.
to process the conflict shock. And then you go back into vagatonia and then you regain normatonia. So you have this whole healing phase where the symptoms really express for the first time in so many cases. And then you have this retracing at the psychological level of the trauma that you were trying to adapt to.
Hmm.
And after you regain normatonia, you have this sort of upgrade in your biology. It's like an upgrade or an update to your
Yeah.
nervous system. And just to tie this home, for example, Children who have those intense fevers, right? Fever being the healing phase. Maybe they got adjusted and then went into a fever, right? Shifted out of the sympathetic stress pattern, was able to comprehend at a deep, subtle level whatever it was that was challenging them in life. They go into the vagatonic healing phase, they express fever, and they're retracing the whole trauma during that healing phase. And then when they regain normatonia, they're like a new child. They're more mature, right? They can speak sentences with greater clarity. They're just more independent. And even to go even a little deeper, fever being a sensory cortex biological program in the healing phase, well, that's all about separation. So the
Mm.
challenge in that individual's life was about separation. Okay. And they needed to process that separation, overcome that challenge. And when they do, with the support of the nervous system and the growth of the individual's comprehension, they go into that healing phase, express fever, retrace the trauma, and then now they're more independent, they're more mature, they're upgraded. Okay. So we can understand biology in this kind of program updates, growth kind of
Yeah.
model. And it really fits. I mean, it really is like this is the paradigm shift that we're entering. It's
Yeah.
really so fascinating. It deserves so much attention. So many awesome conversations can happen with this new knowledge and tying in everything
Yeah.
else we understand. It's just so cool.
Well, and a parent could even look at it as, well, my child's not sick, they're growing, right? And like,
Exactly.
as long as they're given the proper support, which that is crucially important, right? That the
Yeah.
child have the proper support and the proper understanding, so that way something's not going that's going to be deleterious or destructive to their physiology long term, to be able to understand the nuances of particularly what's happening at the level of the nervous system. And also to understand in that example, you mentioned sympathicotonia. So when we are in a sympathetic or fight or flight state, that is very immunosuppressive, meaning our immune system is not functioning normally. And so when we come out of that sympathetic state and go into parasympathetic, that is very immune supportive. And so there will naturally be more inflammation that happens from that, which is precisely the healing process at work. Is the body's going to create inflammation to encourage tissue repair, healing, growth, recovery, and then come out of that state and be like an upgrade, just like you had mentioned. We're
Mhm.
like, oh, now we're going to speak full sentences because the nervous system was locked into a particular state that was inhibiting its forward progress. And it was so important to go through that process in order to get to the next state.
Yeah, 100%. And supporting the nervous system, those measures, they now we understand that in addition to supporting the nervous system in these holistic ways, nutrition, chiropractic care, lifestyle, everything we
Yes.
can. Now it's about identifying the challenge in life, and then we can help the individual comprehend and bring coherence to their own psyche, brain, and organ with respect to this specific challenge in life.
Yeah.
And so that's now we understand a new way of supporting the nervous system. There's the physical support, which chiropractors have owned for over a century
Yeah.
of the attention to the nervous system via the spine, the musculoskeletal system, the neuroskeleton, and
Hmm.
bringing support there. And now there's an emotional level, or if you want, a spiritual level, which
Yes.
is about helping that individual comprehend their life story and the challenges that they had to face,
Yeah.
and yeah, about that point about immunosuppressive and then relaxing the immune system. Yeah, the healing phase. That's how we have to understand microbes now. Is the body um, kind of releases kind of their control over over the microbes of the body. Says, okay, now you can start to activate. The body does that. The body shifts into this different immune system pattern to allow the microbes to proliferate and to allow the
Yes.
microbes to participate in this healing phase to restore the organ back to normal function and
Yes.
normal cellular tone. So yeah, it's really cool. Thanks.
That's a beautiful thing. I feel like there's a lot of directions we could go. Um, I think some of what you said can explain some of the chronic issues that people might experience as well. I know we spoke about that in some of the earlier episodes where the conflict is not fully resolved. But I just wanted to see if we could start to wrap things up. Is there, some closing points you'd like to make or things that I think are good with that? I mean, we covered a lot of really exciting ground. I feel really good about this discussion about the nervous system.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It went by so fast. It's just an hour already.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there are so many things to be said. I think what's going to happen is when you learn about the German new medicine and you really integrate these discoveries and the significance, you'll find, like I found, that this should be in pretty much every medical conversation in
Yep.
schools, but
Yep.
really in chiropractic schools. I really think in chiropractic colleges, this should be the conversation that's being had. I think German new medicine, it's such a cohesive body of knowledge. It should be there with anatomy and physiology. I mean,
Yep.
really, it really, and biology is a kind of a scary topic for a lot of people, even though we all live in a body. We're all biologists, okay? We all
Yes.
live in a body. That's how we experience our environment. So we're all studying this biological phenomenon, the many of them that we experience intimately. It's what life means. And but it's a scary topic for a lot of people. A lot of words they don't understand, and a lot of systems that really just don't make so much intuitive sense. You need this sophisticated, microscopic kind of appreciation to, become, prolific or proficient in this biological field. All
Yeah,
right.
and even the day-to-day symptoms people may experience can be very concerning. We just don't, we're like, well, like, I don't know what's happening on the inside of my body. I'm feeling these sensations. I'm not sure what's happening here. It can be tough to sort all this out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing is very distressing. The German new medicine, like what I found learning the German new medicine, is that I can now understand biology in a way that
Yes.
makes sense to me as a human being on a very intuitive level. I understand the organ systems now. They're not just mechanical parts like parts in an automobile.
Yeah.
Like I'll just leave that to the mechanic to deal with. No, they're very intimately related to you as a human being and your experiences of life. And they activate, they change, they adapt specifically due to your experiences in life. And now you have this whole other level, the level of the psyche, to now comprehend biology. And you think it makes it harder, it makes it easier, so much easier now to
Yes.
understand biology. So anatomy, physiology, and German new medicine is now, German new medicine just allows any average human being, like you don't need to be that smart, okay, to
Yeah.
understand this complex phenomenon and this complex orchestration of biology,
Yeah.
um, because it's so intimately connected to you as a human being and your categories of experience in life. So it just enlivens our understanding of life.
Yeah.
And so I know that this, it's interesting. This is sort of one of the first conversations, chiropractic and German medicine together, that I'm aware of. I don't hear this conversation happening a lot in the world, but it's going to grow. And
Yes.
these are going to be the conversations that happen, I believe, on university campuses, college campuses, especially in chiropractic circles, because of how well it integrates with the philosophy, the science, and the art of chiropractic.
It really does. And I think on one level, what we're all looking for is greater depth of understanding. And this allows a richness and a depth to understanding the systems in the body. It's not that those other understandings are outright wrong. I mean, there are examples where they may have been, but it wasn't a more complete picture. And so this is offering a more complete picture. It's not the entirety of the picture, right? I don't know if we'll ever have the entirety of the picture
Exactly. Yeah.
because there's so much out there in the mystery, but this is offering greater depth, which is really neat. That me personally, I think a lot of our listeners, that's what we're looking for, is a greater depth of this understanding of this human experience that we're all participating in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the step, the physical step to bring us into, in a scientific way, the vitalistic paradigm
Yes.
that has so many ways there's so much yet to come in
Yes.
this topic. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks again, John. Really appreciate you joining us. Always a pleasure to continue with these conversations.
Always a pleasure. Thank you,
All right.
Brandon.
We'll talk to you later.